War has and will continue, regretfully, to be part of human existence. The very word war evokes powerful emotions, horror and honour, shame and fame, love and loss, pity and pride, and is a focus of much public interest. Poetry, like all cultural productions, has the ability to interact with the historical events of war and create both a cognitive and emotional response in its reader. The poems And the Band Played Waltzing Matilda by Scottish singer-songwriter Eric Bogle and The Charge of the Light Brigade by renowned Alfred Tennyson are no exceptions. Both of these literary works are well known and both share common subject matter. They highlight the atrocities of war, its futility and gruesomeness. Set in different wars, the respective poets, however, develop this theme slightly differently to create quite contrasting tones, and this is achieved largely through their different treatment of form and structure and varying use of language devices. Both And the Band Played Waltzing Matilda and The Charge of the Light Brigade are motive poems which highlight the barbarity and brutality of war. Both poems are factual representations of actual disastrous historical events, and each depicts the plight of soldiers in war, but they originate from different battles in different times. The Charge of the Light Brigade, published in 1854, is set during the Crimean War at the blundered Battle of Balaclava, where 600 English soldiers perished at the hand of their own army's poor intelligence and poor leadership. And the band played Waltzing Matilda, though inspired by events from the Vietnam War and written in 1971, depicts the Battle of Gallipoli during World War I and describes the story of a young Australian drover who is sent to war and returns home physically maimed and emotionally scarred by the Turkish at Suvla Bay. And the band play Waltzing Matilda is vehemently anti-glorification and seeks to challenge people's perception of war, while The Charge of the Light Brigade does not directly protest war so much as it depicts the battle's futility and celebrates patriotism. Rhythm is created in The Charge of the Light Brigade by use of dactylic dimeter, where the first and fourth syllables are stressed and the others are unstressed. This meter creates a flow like the steady beating of a drum, dum-da-da, or the driving movement of a horse galloping, clip-de-clop, clip-de-clop. This technique creates a sense of strong, relentless forward movement and the excitement of war. The rhythm in And the Band Played Waltzing Matilda, on the other hand, is assisted by the use of rhetorical isocolon, where grammatical phrases and clauses are succeeded by phrases and clauses of equal length, such as, from the Murray's green basin to the dusty outback, they gave me a tin hat, they gave me a gun. We buried ours and the Turks buried theirs. This use of isocolon maintains consistency and balance and brings a more lyrical rhythm and flow in comparison to that of The Charge of the Light Brigade. Bogle makes very broad use of figurative language with evocative phrases, extensive alliteration, some simile and metaphor, all of which create engagement and coupled with repetition make the ballad memorable. Alliteration is littered throughout all verses. Blood stained the sand, 5 minutes flat, blew us right back to Australia, and each utilization of this technique draws attention to the phrase, creates a harder mood, and helps to make the poem flow. Strong imagery of senseless killing is depicted by use of the simile. We were butchered like lambs at the slaughter, and similarly the metaphor in that hell that they called Suvla Bay, which describes very vividly the horrific scene of Gallipoli. Evocative language artfully used by Bogle conveys strong visual images and feelings, really engaging its audience. He showered us with bullets and rained us with shells. It'd blown us all to hell. Christ, I wish I was dead. Consistent repetition of the phrase And the Band Played Waltzing Matilda through each verse alludes to the iconic Australian song Waltzing Matilda, which becomes a metaphor for his inability to dance once he is maimed by war. Tennyson, like Bogle, creates power from careful use of evocative imagery as well as alliteration, but also introduces personification, onomatopoeia, and symbolism. The strong central image referred to in the Valley of Death most likely alludes to Psalm 23 about the Valley of the Shadow of Death. This biblical symbol implores its solemn prominence that death is all around and inescapable, but also portrays an ultimate trust in God, or perhaps government. Alliteration and onomatopoeia are used to describe the angry noise of battle. stormed at with shot and shell, and the feeling of defeat, reeled from the sabre stroke shattered and sundered. Then, to really make vivid the horrific images of war, Tennyson uses personification into the jaws of death, into the mouth of hell, giving human-like traits to death and hell that will not release their hold. All these techniques serve to paint a picture of gruesome brutality and that death at war is unescapable. Both And the Band Played Waltzing Matilda and The Charge of the Light Brigade are renowned, iconic ballads written to convey the futility and brutality of war, albeit at different times, but each presents this message using a variety of poetic devices, different structures of rhyme and rhythm, and therefore puts a slightly different stance on the theme. And the Band Played Waltzing Matilda is very much anti-war and anti-glorification, while The Charge of the Light Brigade is more about honouring the forgotten heroes while not forgetting the folly and idiocy of war.